Hi, morning everyone. On this Friday morning, it's cold in South Africa with the current cold front with us this morning. When I went to gym, it was 2 degrees outside. So I hope you are well and keep yourself warm. But welcome to our live stream session on Forex and offshore investment. And wherever you are, whether you are on our YouTube platform, Facebook, or LinkedIn, welcome. And today we focus on the topic of Forex and for South Africans who are thinking of maybe emigrating. The topic of financial immigration has been quite big over the last few months. Forex coming into the country, out of the country, and for offshore investment. So at Daberistic, we help a lot of clients unpack what's offshore investment, why offshore investment, and how to go about it. And today I'm have the pleasure of having Kuda to join us. Kuda Kamushinda, he's from Currencies Direct. He's a Forex exchange specialist. And let me just put this on the screen at the moment. So to welcome Kuda. Kuda, how are you doing?
I'm good, Kevin. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Welcome to my program and my studio. And thanks for the collaboration and also to help our audience, our clients unpack the Forex. And I think that as per my description when I sent out the event, many people still think that this is quite a mystery in terms of Forex, especially when it comes to investing offshore. Financial immigration seems to be quite a daunting topic. And I'm very glad to have you with us this morning to talk about Forex and what some of these things mean for people who may be thinking about diversifying their investment, or people who are thinking about immigration, or whether it's going out, or I've come across people who are coming into the country. And I think that Forex is a very important topic, because that in South Africa, we have foreign exchange controls. So over the years, it has been relaxed, but it's still in place to make sure it's the Forex flows occur in an orderly fashion. So without further ado, Kuda, I believe you have prepared a presentation for us. So let me just go ahead and share that presentation. So Kuda, please
Sure. Thank you, Kevin.
tell us about
Yeah,
yourself, Currencies Direct, and your services.
awesome. No, thank you very much, Kevin. It is a pleasure to be here. As you mentioned, it is one of those fields with foreign exchange where in South Africa, because of the rules we have around it, people
Yeah.
do get a bit quite unsettled and quite uncertain about the regulation out there. So as you can see, I'm Currencies Direct. I'm a foreign exchange specialist, and my job here is to try and give guidance to a lot of the clients who have any troubles sending money out, so that it is done right. Because quite often people get transfers done, but it causes creating headaches later down the line for them. We're here to make sure that the paperwork is done properly, things are filed appropriately with the Reserve Bank, so that there are no issues later down in the future, and that everyone at least can, comfortably live their lives in South Africa. As for the current company I'm with, Currency Direct is it. We're a UK-based company. We have over now 20 branches all over the world. In South Africa, our headquarters are in Cape Town. I'm currently leading for the Joburg team, and there's another colleague of mine who runs the Durban team. In total, that basically means that because we're all over the world, we can basically help people convert currencies into just about any currency out there, except the really, really rare ones, such as the one that's in Paraguay called the Guarani. Beyond that, though, we can convert into any currency, and we can help people move money from South Africa to elsewhere in the world, also in the world into South Africa, as well as basically anywhere else in the world as well. So we can help people from US to New Zealand, the whole lot, because we have branches there.
Yeah,
As for what we do,
it is very comforting to see that you are, because of your presence globally, and you have that global knowledge of how it works in different regions and countries. If I look at this map, you are well represented here in South Africa or Southern Africa, and you have Europe and US, North America, and also Asia and Australasia. So yeah, I think that clients working with Currencies Direct certainly will benefit from your expertise.
Thank you, appreciate it. We all, from what we've heard, we are 5-star rated on Trustpilot, so clients do like our service and really do find value in it. As for what you're doing, exactly why people pick us over their banks, if you could go to the next slide, let me explain that to the audience we have. So as I mentioned, we convert currencies into just about any currency out there. So whatever challenge you're looking for, whatever currency you're looking to do, whether you're sending money out to invest in a property, to just send your money abroad because you're investing with Daberistic, or you're buying a property overseas and just want to maybe travel and move country and emigrate, we can assist with that. As for the way our structure works, we have no hidden account fees, no commissions as well. We don't charge any fees to make the transfers. The only one we do charge is for any transfers below 100,000, we charge 375 Rand for the SWIFT fee. Above that, there is no charge at all. So it's literally just the exchange rate margin that you get from us, which will be better than the one you get from the bank. And that's what we do for our clients. The reason there is we do all the exchange control paperwork, and that is in reference to the next slide that you'll see later on. But that's more in terms of the regulations that the Reserve Bank has. No, go back one more slide. Sorry, one back.
Okay. Sorry.
Perfect. So we can do that.
A bit too fast. Yeah.
So what happens is I'll touch on the slide basically where we do the exchange control paperwork as well as why we do it. But that's typically within the regulations from SARS and the Reserve Bank. And these are the different tiers that people need to be aware of and the processes you need to be aware of when you send certain values of money. As mentioned, we're 5-star rated on Trustpilot. So our service, apparently, from the clients we've dealt with, love it a lot. In Cape Town as well, we have a really good network and a really good footprint there, and people do enjoy us quite a bit. Last reason as well for some of our partners is that we offer referral commission. That kind of works like a profit split setup that we have, and it allows them and us to kind of benefit from assisting clients while also saving them money, but also giving a thank you for their business that they provide us. And one of the reasons that people do like using us is more from the point that we save the money on the exchange rate. Now, because we don't charge commissions and have no account fees and the like, a lot of people end up asking us, how then do you make money on that exchange rate? How do you make money in your system? The next slide explains that for people. So as you can see there, we'll use the example, let's say if the euro was 1 euro was 18 Rand, what you see there on the far left side is the market rate. Now the market rate is what, if you logged on to Google right now to say what is 1 euro to what is 1 Rand, that is the rate that you'd get. But as people quite often see, whenever you go to the bank, it's never the rate you saw online. And that's because the bank and all other companies that actually change money always put up a margin so that they can actually make some money on that whole exchange rate.
Sure.
In this example, 50 cents would have been the margin the bank would put on. And in the setup that we have with Currencies Direct, we would add maybe about 15 cents for the margin that we actually apply compared to the banks.
Yeah.
That's in total about a 35-cent saving by using us. And how we make money in that is that our partner banks, because we send over 132 billion a year, give us preferred exchange rates that then allow us to forward those exchange rates on to our clients. And we then get a split between the banks whereby we share that discounted margin. They take a cut of it and we take a cut. And because we only specialize in foreign exchange, we're able to make money from that because we don't have significant overheads or a large team. We can run all these processes with a smaller team. And that's how we make money. So in this example, if you're, for example, looking to send about 1 million Rand, or basically for every 1 million Rand that a client transfers out of the country, by using us compared to a bank, they're looking to maybe save between 10 and up to sometimes 50,000 Rand per every million that they transfer because of that exchange rate difference. So that's the benefit we provide to our clients.
Yeah. Kuda, on this point, I must say that this is very interesting because my experience has shown that, different banking, financial institutions and forex dealers, they charge differently in terms of
Correct.
the margin. So whereas I use my credit card, and if I buy something on Amazon or some other place, and I found that the bank typically they charge between 3.5% to 4%,
That is correct.
and higher than the going exchange rate. And
That is correct.
there are some smaller forex dealers where maybe they specialize in certain sectors, but yeah, that margin can be quite high, and I think
Yeah,
that for clients who are able to go through the process and are able to use Currencies Direct service, and then definitely will save quite a bit in terms of those margins and the fees. Yeah.
correct. Correct. So, I mean, to add on to that as well, like you're saying, we do have other financial intermediaries that sometimes do seem like offer cheaper rates. The reality is, compared to the banks or financial intermediaries like the other currency companies such as Currency Direct, they will often always beat the bank's rate. But between those other companies, there will often be a lot of competition within the rates that we can serve. So,
Yeah.
not from the bank's perspective, comparing to the banks, we can always say that we'll beat the banks, but it may not always be the best rate compared to others. But the benefit with us is that if you do have a better rate somewhere else, you can always bring that rate to us, and we'll be more than helpful or open to actually getting our banking partners to negotiate better to offer a better
Yeah.
rate for our clients. Whereas with the banks, typically it's a take it or leave it type of situation. You get the rate and that's it. If you're not happy with it, then usually their attitude is go elsewhere. Our approach is, if you have a better rate from somewhere else, let us have the opportunity to actually try and offer you a better one, or even match it at least for that kind of situation.
Yeah, I like your approach of being able to negotiate and then trying to give the client the best deal. Yeah.
Correct. Correct. Awesome. And then
Right.
I believe
So
you wanted to touch on the exchange control regulations.
yeah, I think that's very important because I think that lots of people want to really understand what are the regulations. I think for the last 2 years, a lot of people haven't been able to travel overseas because of COVID and that. But I can see that there are more and more people thinking about traveling
Correct.
overseas and spend their money overseas. Like post if we can't say post COVID, we're still living with COVID, but I think that with the vaccinations and the symptoms getting milder, and I think that people are getting ready again to travel. So certainly these forex regulations are quite important. So Kuda, can you run us through the regulations?
All right, perfect. So the Forex regulations here, as you can see, are for individuals. They mainly focus towards individuals. And the reason for that is that corporates don't have any limits into how much they can either send or receive. The only criteria that corporates need to adhere by is that they can only send money out on an invoice. So
Yeah.
a corporate can't just send money out for any reason. They have to have an invoice that they're paying, and that is that is the only limitation that they have. But the invoice could be billions as far as the Reserve Bank is concerned. As long as it's
Yeah.
invoice and you have the money, you can pay it. For residents, though, unfortunately, that's not as flexible, and there are somewhat limitations or things that people must be aware of. And the first one is for SA residents. Now, SA residents are defined as any individual who has a green barcoded ID. So even the updated one, the card, that is allowed as well. That
Yeah.
is considered, as long as you have an SA barcoded ID, you are
Yeah.
deemed an SA resident. And what that means is that per calendar year, so from the 1st of January to the 31st
Yeah.
of December, you are allowed to send out 1 million Rand with no issues. There's no need for approval, application. The 1 million Rand is what you're allowed to transfer out of the country. And you can
Yeah.
do that through your bank, through us, or basically you can transfer it or swipe it outside. Just so people are aware, the single discretionary allowance of 1 million includes travel allowance. So if you leave the
Yeah.
country and you swipe your card outside the country, it's
Mm-hmm.
included in that 1 million that is deducted. Any money you
Yeah.
send out of the country is included there as well. And
Yeah.
any transfers out for gifts or just sending to friends is all included in that 1 million. From the 1 million, if you do exceed that, the next step is you can go to SARS, and it's called a Foreign
Okay.
Investment Allowance that you can get for the application. And they
Yeah.
allow you to transfer from 1 million to 10 million Rand. A lot of people get nervous when you say SARS because they now think it's a tax situation. It's not a tax situation.
Yeah.
All SARS will confirm is that your source of funds
Yeah.
makes sense for the amount of money you're sending out. So,
Yeah.
for example, if you're looking to send out 8 million rand
Yeah.
and your source of funds basically is saying savings,
Right.
you have some people who maybe try that. Well, they'll come and say their income is 5,000 rand a month, but they want to
Yeah.
send out maybe 7 million.
Sure.
It's one of those things that doesn't make sense. So
Yeah. It
SARS just
doesn't
wants
match. Yeah.
it doesn't match exactly. So there's no
Yeah.
tax implication of it. It's just an
Mm.
application that we make to SARS for you to make sure that your source of funds,
Mm.
they're happy with it, and they're also able to just check that you have been paying tax accordingly. There is no penalty
Mm.
you get, just for them to kind of make sure everything's in order from their side. So most
Kuda,
often,
that's a important. Let's just stop here for a while. That's where some of my clients, the moment they hear that it's going to application to SARS, then they start to panic. They say, like, what if SARS is going to check my tax affairs, and maybe I would then have to pay more taxes, etc. But I think the situation is that if as long as someone is already been paying taxes, and and you disclose your income, and you're up to date with your SARS e-filing and returns, then they shouldn't be concerned about you have that SARS will dig up your dirt and in the past,
no,
and ask you to pay more taxes.
no. So it doesn't trigger an audit at all. We have that often quite a bit, because when you need to transfer money, we sometimes ask people for their tax number. And the reason for
Yes.
that is just so that it's recorded. So payments outside the country are always recorded with your ID and your tax number, just for them to keep track of how much you sent out of the country. It doesn't trigger an audit. It doesn't trigger any penalty. It's just a tracking mechanism that they use. So in the same case as us, we have people who panic when you say we need your tax number and we need to make an application to SARS. There is no penalty. It will not trigger an audit of any sort. It's just for them to be happy to approve it. So quite often, for example, in this application, you'll have people who maybe sold the property of 6 million rand and they're immigrating out of the country. The source of funds that you just need to provide us is usually the final statement of account with the conveyancing attorney and the title deed that you have that just shows where the money is from. SARS will basically then just look at that, verify it, authorize it, and you're good to go. There's no penalty, nothing else needs to be done about that. And then the last step for your SA residents is we go to the Reserve Bank. So what happens here is whenever you want to send a total of the 10 million from SARS and the 1 million from your single discretionary allowance, above 11 million, we then go to the Reserve Bank. And from here, there is no limit. So we quite often get asked, like, how much is the limit I can send? There is no limit. The largest approval we've ever gotten was 200 million for a single individual.
Sure.
That was from the Reserve Bank. So I mean, if you're welcome to try and test that and see if you can find a limit with you, by all means, please. If you're trying to has that money, we're more than welcome to try and see if we can maybe find a limit, but so far we haven't.
Yeah.
And again, the same process applies. It's just them checking the source of funds to make sure either that your income justifies or is applicable and matches what you're asking to send out, or that the source of funds you've obtained is justified. So either you have an investment fund that you're disinvesting from here, or you have a property you're selling and you're moving the proceeds overseas. That's all they're looking to confirm.
Right.
Then the second part is your non-residents, and these also include foreigners. Now for them, this is not really, it's a tricky one because quite often foreigners make transactions in South Africa. And when bringing money in, it never seems like a problem. It's always when the money needs to go out that they have. So for non-residents, there is no really limit for how much you can send into the country and you can send out of the country in terms of what you've produced. The only restriction you have is that you have to have proof of funds introduced to send the money back out. That basically means you have to prove when and how you sent the money into South Africa to either buy a property or invest in South Africa for you to send the money out. So whenever a foreigner does any payment into South Africa, there's a SWIFT form or transaction record they get from their bank. That document they need to keep. And that one is what they'll then use either 5 years from now on when they want to send the money out. That's what they need to keep. So clients who use us, we're able to keep that document for you so that if you come back to us later down the line, we can always then serve it back to you, showing the record of when the money came in. But if you don't want to use us, then ideally just remember to ask your bank for that record. It's called a SWIFT record, and that is what you use to send the money out. Quite often, a lot of foreigners have their money stuck here and can't get out because they either lost it or they never kept it. And that's usually the main issue.
Kuda,
So
I think what you say here about keeping the proof of funds introduced is so critical because I think that
yes,
many people when they come to South Africa and they transfer money in, they just they use that money maybe to buy a house, buy a car, and buy
correct,
and for living expenses and that. But they don't necessarily keep the record. Only when they
correct,
are leaving the country, then they want to take the money out, then they get stuck. And that's so I think that's very important. It's a good advice to all the people who are coming into South Africa or who are bringing money into South Africa to keep those the proof. And what you said about if you can just make use of one forex dealer where it can keep a track record for you, then that would be even better. Yeah.
correct. It makes it much easier because I mean it's not really too. It's something that's so simple, but quite often a lot of banks and other
Mm.
people don't actually tell clients, but it causes
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
headaches. So we often get clients who come to us when they have that issue. And
Yeah.
if you have that proof of funds introduced, it can take us
Yeah.
only about a week to get clearance for your
Mm.
funds to leave the country. But if you don't, it can take sometimes a good 2 3 months for us to
Sure.
apply to the Reserve Bank because we now have to
Yeah.
explain the record, what
Yeah.
happened, how you brought the
Yeah.
money in. And sometimes it's not
Yes.
successful. Quite often it is, but it's just one of those
Mm.
things that you need to be aware of. That if you just keep that one single document, your
Yeah.
time can be cut down by 2 months just to get your money out of the country.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
given how the rand can go up and down sometimes,
Yeah.
2 months can make a big difference. You can get a really
Sure.
good deal, two
Yeah.
months in the difference. So yeah, it makes
Yeah.
significant impact.
All right.
The last point
Good
there
on.
applies just to these are non-residents or foreigners who now work in South Africa. So if you have a
Mm.
work visa, the only
Yeah.
limitation you have is that you can send out of the country 75% of what you
Yeah.
earn in South Africa.
Okay.
From the Reserve Bank's perspective, to at least 25% must be getting used here for you to live
Yeah.
here, your rent, your food. So
Yes. Yes.
75% is only what they allow you to
Yeah.
send out. So that's the
Yeah.
only
That
restriction.
okay. That's fair. I mean, for if anyone can save 75% of the income, that would be amazing. So I think that's quite a reasonable cap.
No, agreed. So this is a simple setup, and this is basically the overview. So with the
Yeah.
foreign investment allowance and the SOB approvals from the Reserve Bank, if clients do come through us, we do those as a complimentary service, so there's no charge from us. The SARS one, you can get it done from your accountant.
Yeah.
Accountants obviously charge their own fees for that, but if you come through
Yeah.
us, it then gets done as a complimentary service, as long as you do make the
Yeah.
transfer through us, though. That's the only
Mm.
caveat we have for that situation. And that
All
basically
right.
sums up the regulations for individuals.
Mm. Okay. Brilliant.
Um, Something else I wanted to touch on, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
financial immigration. I think particularly since
Okay.
the looting and with the load shedding increasing, people get quite
Yeah.
frustrated with South Africa, and a lot of people have
Mm.
decided they're leaving. Um, Financial immigration is a topic that has been coming up in here and go, and
Mm.
it's just one that I like to now touch on, just to kind of give people position on what to be mindful of and what to do.
Yeah. Okay.
So if I can
Sure.
start, financial immigration, what is it? It's basically the last step that people can take in cutting ties with South Africa, and that is by asking SARS and the Reserve Bank to declare you as a non-resident for tax purposes and also for
Okay.
exchange control purposes.
Mm.
It's basically you saying you want nothing to do with South Africa anymore, and you basically wanted to cut it off. That being
Mm.
said, your citizenship is not impacted by financial immigration, so you can be a
Oh.
non-tax resident of financial immigration and still be a South African citizen.
All right. So what you mean here is that they say I have some clients, younger clients who have immigrated, or some are thinking of immigrating.
Right.
So even if they have immigrated and afterwards they apply for financial immigration, but they can still keep their South African citizenship.
Correct. So they can
Okay.
still remain as a South African citizen. They just are no
Yeah.
longer considered an SA resident from a tax exchange control purpose, and that's the
Yeah.
only limitation. So it's a
Right.
weird setup they have in South Africa in that they've kind
Yeah.
of made three different tiers. You have
Mm.
citizenship, you
Mm.
have exchange control designation, and then you
Mm.
have your tax designation. So South Africans can be a citizen, and financial immigration only affects your tax status and your
Yeah.
exchange control status. So the Reserve
Right.
Bank will see you as a non-resident, and from
Mm.
South's perspective, you're no longer someone who pays tax in South Africa. But
Yeah.
overall, South Africa still will deem you as a South African citizen.
Okay.
The only way to lose your citizenship is to either, when you immigrate, if you forget to apply to retain your citizenship, if you get new citizenship, your South African one will actually fall away if you haven't applied to retain it, or if you actually renounce your citizenship. Those are the only two
So when
ways
you
for
say
you.
apply to retain citizenship, do you have to do that in South Africa, or when you are in a foreign country, then you apply through the embassy?
So the specifics of that, I'm not too sure, but I believe you
Okay.
can actually do it from the embassy in South Africa. The only
Yeah.
regulation I know about that is that if you do plan to take up citizenship in another country, for you
Mm.
to have the dual citizenship, you must have
Yeah.
applied and told South Africa that you do intend to get another citizenship before you get
Mm.
it. So if you
Yeah.
get it without telling South Africa, the South African one is automatically lost. That's what I've heard about that. That's what the
Okay.
regulation that they stipulate. So you just have to
Mm.
notify them that you're getting a new citizenship, and then once
Yeah.
that is sorted, you can get a new one and be a dual citizen.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So carry on with the financial immigration. What's the
Awesome.
process for someone to apply?
So for someone to apply, the old process used to go to the Reserve Bank, but
Mm.
since 2021 March, we now have a process that now only goes through SARS.
Mm.
And in that, what happens is, so it's a process of basically explaining what you have left in South Africa and what you want to take out. So
Yeah.
in it, so let me actually mention on the pros and cons then. So basically, the pros of financial immigration is that
Yeah.
you get to become deemed a non-resident, which means that you no
Mm.
longer have to pay tax at all in South Africa.
Yeah.
Another benefit of financial immigration is that if you have a pension fund and a retirement annuity, both of
Yeah.
them, once you financially immigrated, you're allowed to take out the full lump sum and take it off to wherever
Yeah.
you are in the world.
Mm.
The cons, though, are that with financial immigration, you make your application, which now goes to SARS. And when
Okay.
it goes to SARS, you're only allowed to claim out of South Africa what you have declared on your actual
Yeah.
application. That means that
Mm.
when you put your application together, you need to put out the properties you have left, the vehicles you have left, amounts
Yeah.
you have left in your bank accounts, as well
Yeah.
as any other maybe inheritance forms that you may get from
Mm.
maybe a grandma or something else like that. Because if you
Right.
don't, it can cause issues. And we've had that
Mm.
situation, for example, where we've had two clients who had the same grandparent. The grandparent unfortunately passed away, and the clients were both in New Zealand.
Right.
One of them did not financially immigrate. So when it
Mm.
came time for them to receive their share of the inheritance, which was just under a
Mm.
million rand, we were
Mm.
able to set up an account for them and send the money off to New Zealand in less than a week after getting it from the attorneys. The
Okay.
second client who financially immigrated, in her
Mm.
application form, did not actually put grandma's will on the financial immigration form, which means that as far as
No.
South Africa is concerned, she cannot just casually claim that money back because
Yeah.
she is no longer a tax resident and therefore no longer gets that permission to send the 1 million
Yeah.
allowance every year. As a
Yeah.
result, we're stuck with her application still with the Reserve Bank, and it's about 3 months now that we're working
Okay.
between the trustees who unwound the
Yeah.
estate and the
Yeah.
Reserve Bank to get them to agree on the requirements for us to finally get approval to send the money off to her.
Hmm.
But these are
Yeah.
things people forget that if you don't put it on your application, it's going to haunt you later on. So if you,
Yeah.
our position generally is that if you don't have, as long as you have any family that you might come back for in South Africa,
Yeah.
or you have any reason you might want to come back, or you have any family members who you think you might inherit from, our general
Mm.
position is don't actually financially immigrate because a lot of the pros that we
Mm.
mentioned, we can actually give you the benefits without doing so. So, for example, with the retirement annuity or pension fund, for people
Yeah.
who've left the country, we can
Yeah.
actually open a local account for you to receive the money in. And whenever you
Yeah.
want it, we'll then send it off to you wherever you are in the world. You don't have to
Yeah.
financially immigrate for that. Um,
Yeah.
Another benefit as well is that if you need those situations whereby you want to leave the country, but you want to avoid paying tax, quite often we
Mm.
can look into it because a lot of countries have double tax agreements with South Africa, which means
Mm.
that if it does have that set up, you don't have to worry about paying tax as well with South Africa. So New Zealand
Mm.
is one of those. If you go to New Zealand and you pay tax in New Zealand, you don't have to pay any additional tax to South Africa. So
Yeah.
quite often people do it because I guess they're quite frustrated with South Africa, but it's not
Mhm.
necessary to do that.
I think that the implication of not financially immigrating, doesn't that mean that every year you still need to submit a tax return to SARS? Because if you have financially immigrated, you're no longer a tax resident, then you don't have to submit a tax return to SARS every year. But if you haven't financially immigrated, then isn't there a duty for you to submit your annual tax return to SARS still, even though maybe you don't have to pay any tax?
So the nitty gritties of that depend on the country you've gone to. For some
Yeah,
countries that have the double taxation agreement, you may
yeah.
just need to just declare that you're paying on that side, and that's all you need to do. So it's
So
literally
then
there's
that
no
means
need to
that
do
every
it.
year you don't have to submit tax return to SARS, and SARS is
No,
okay
it
with
wouldn't
it.
be necessary. From what the information I have, you don't have to be submitting returns all the time to SARS this side. Quite often your tax number will actually follow or become dormant. But
Mm,
ideally, because you're paying tax on the other side, it's already accounted for. So if ever they wanted any proof, you just show them what you've been paying, for example, in New Zealand.
yeah. Okay.
That's it.
Uh, and in terms of financial immigration, I remember that if you have left South Africa for more than 3 years, and then you can apply for financial immigration. Is that the case, or you can
Correct.
actually apply for financial immigration even before 3 years is up?
No. So what happened was from March 2021,
Yeah.
the new rules came in, and they basically dictated that you can only now apply for natural immigration after you've taken up permanent residency in another country and paid tax there for at least 3 years. That's the new rule.
Ah.
And the
Okay.
reason for that
Yeah.
was that there were some rather, I guess, inventive individuals who
Mm.
were applying for financial immigration, would then get their full retirement annuities or pension funds, leave the country with them, then come back to South Africa now holding the full amount elsewhere in the country or elsewhere in the world as investments for themselves. So
Oh.
that's what. So to
But
stop
then
that,
when they took the money out, you will be subject to tax because
you are
yeah,
subject to some
if
tax,
if
but
yeah.
correct. But now, typically, the approach for South Africa with retirement annuities and all that is that you're never supposed to take the full amount out of the country.
Mm,
So you're
mm,
then supposed to get
yeah,
the monthly payment from it. So by
yeah,
allowing, but people found the loophole in using financial
yeah,
immigration to get the full lump sum out and then keep it out
yeah,
of the country as a full lump sum and then deal with it
yeah,
themselves, which is not what they wanted to actually happen. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
why there's become a 3 year limit for us to be
I see.
sure you are settled
Mm,
outside the country before
yeah,
we'll let you have it.
yeah. I
And
think Kuda, this financial immigration sounds from our discussion is actually a huge topic, and it can be
it,
quite complicated. And
it can be.
you just now you talk about the pros and cons, but I think that maybe it's a topic we need to focus on another time, and you
No, be
can
happy
maybe
to.
share some case studies, and we can actually unpack, because like for clients who are leaving South Africa or who have already left South Africa recently, and then this topic of financial immigration is really quite important to
Correct.
them. And then whether you do the financial migration or not, like just now what you touched on, I think it's really it's not just one way bet, but you need to think about it. What you talked about, that when you financially immigrate, you need to declare a lot of things, and even the will, or like maybe you can be a potential beneficiary in someone's will. That I would say that 90% or 95% of the clients wouldn't have even thought about that. And
Yep.
like the assets are easy. Like your house, your car, your retirement annuity, and maybe money in the bank. These are things that it's easily to think of, and then to track down and declare. But thinking about you have relatives, people who might bequeath something to you. Oh, I think that's that's another ball game.
No,
But
that is true.
yeah, let's shall we move on to the next topic then?
We can actually just wanted to actually touch on the cost quickly if you don't mind. So the
Okay,
cost of
good.
financial
Yeah.
immigration can
Okay.
range for some people, just to make them aware.
Yeah.
Some places can charge as low as about 6,000 excluding VAT, so about 6,900. That's where we
Yeah.
start, and the
Yeah.
tiers go up according to how complicated an individual is. So when
Yeah.
I say complicated, it's usually how many retirement annuities you want to declare or
Yeah.
pension funds you want to declare that increases the cost. Um, so now it starts about 6,900, 7,000 rand is where it starts off for
Mm,
people. And some
right.
places can charge up to 30,000 rand. So when people
Yeah.
do look around, just make sure you kind of are aware of the different pricing. And if you'd like
Mhm.
to have a chat about it, just to kind of work out your options, you're more than welcome to call us, and we'll
Okay.
happily guide you through the process, because we also do it ourselves.
Mm.
In as part of the whole package we offer to clients whenever they are now immigrating out of the country.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great to know about this service from Currencies Direct.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, we
So
can do that. Sure.
Next one. Okay. It's interesting, Kuda. That wasn't my brief to you, but now you talk about certain scams. So are these the scams related to like Forex?
So these are more in general scams we're seeing in the financial space of late.
Yeah.
A lot of people are getting caught off guard by them. So we just figured quite often a lot of people get told, do not watch out for scams. But what
Mm,
we opted to do now is just try and actually explain to you what had happened so you know exactly what to look out for.
okay.
Because more often than not, a lot of people don't realize they're getting scammed up until it happens. And by then it's
Yeah.
obviously too late.
Mm,
So these are just the four main ones we've been hearing of late that I wanted to touch on. Gumtree payment scam. This one is on our lovely forum here, our platform here in South Africa for selling stuff. That is
yeah.
Gumtree. This
Yeah.
is a scam that's been happening of late, whereby people kind of forget how banking systems work. And how it works is,
Mm,
whenever someone will list something of decent value,
mm,
let's say a
yeah.
laptop, even washing machine when they're moving,
Yeah.
or a car, you will have people contact them who are the scammers, and they will actually buy the item.
Sure.
What they'll then do is that they will actually send a very legit looking proof of payment to the individual, and at the
Mm,
same time will come and collect the item.
right.
Now, this one, when you say it, sounds easy to spot out, but quite often people get so excited by having the proof of payment that they don't actually stop to realize that even a legit looking proof of payment from your own
Yeah.
bank means
Yeah.
nothing until the funds are actually in your account. So a lot of people get
Mm,
scammed because they've got the proof of payment, but the funds will never show up because it was a fake one.
okay. Yeah.
So our warning
So.
for people is that
Mm,
whenever you do transactions, if the
mm,
funds are not in your account, then the fund transaction is not complete. Even if it's a proof of payment
mm,
from your own bank, until
yeah.
the funds actually reflect in your account,
Mm.
please don't actually conclude the deal or hand over the item you're selling or supposed to be offering for that service.
Yeah,
Just some
that's a very important point to note. I think that yeah, you need to just check that the money is in your bank account before you can hand over the whatever the
the item.
item. Yeah. Okay.
Correct. The next one is an inheritance scam. This one happens usually from this. This is now more international one, whereby we have people who are contacted by international emails, and they'll
Mm,
usually be told that you are an heir to a large sum of money,
yeah.
and all you need to do is pay a small admin or legal fee,
Yeah.
and we'll be
Yeah.
able to finalize it and send you the money.
Yes.
Now, this one we
Yes.
actually see quite often at our office because quite often
Yeah.
people are now asking us to help them send that fee across to the
Yeah.
scammers out there in the world.
So actually,
Now,
you help the client unpack this, and then you advise the client not to do that because it's
correct.
actually a scam. Oh
Correct,
wow.
correct. Because at this
Okay.
point, we'll have vetted the other side, we'll have looked through the documents they have for the supporting documents. Like, no, my
Yeah.
friend, this is a scam. This is not a good idea.
Yeah.
And for a
Yeah.
lot of them, they don't actually pause to stop about it because quite often
Yeah.
it's millions that are being offered. So they don't
Yeah.
realize that that 10,000
Yeah.
fee is actually a lot of money. I mean, I think the
Yeah.
most we've heard of someone being asked for was 800,000, and they nearly paid the 800,000 to get, I think it was about,
Wow.
they'd been offered about 100 million as apparently the
Yeah.
inheritance they're supposed to get.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
for
No,
this one,
yeah,
yeah,
Kuda, that I come across these emails in my inbox from time to time. You know, it can be someone saying that they got an inheritance and they need my assistance, or I got something. So
yeah,
yeah, I think that people working in the financial service industry and with the fee cut training and that we learned about these things. We are smart enough
correct.
not to fall into this, but I think that for the general public out there, some of these just looks quite enticing. And yeah, if you haven't come
Yeah,
across these kind of issues, then you just thought it's legit, and then you just got into it. But
that is
I commend Currencies Direct to help clients and filter these scams, and so that try to prevent money lost in that way.
exactly. No, we can't have that because I mean, if our clients lose money, then that's a lost opportunity for us as well. Our job here is to try and help clients in all ways we can, as much as we
Yes,
can.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for the
Next.
inheritance scam, we usually just recommend people that look, if you ever get offered any money, but you have to
Yeah,
first pay money to get it, then it's probably a
yeah,
scam.
yeah.
Attorneys and everyone who usually, when they wind up the estate, will often take their fee from the money you're supposed to inherit, not
Right,
ask you to
right.
pay money first. So that is
Yes.
something people must be aware of.
Yeah.
Then the
Okay.
next one we have is email deception. This one we often see with a lot of attorneys that we work with. What happens here is that a hacker will come and they'll intercept the email, change maybe the banking details on the invoice or the banking
Mm.
details in the invoice in the
Yeah.
email, so that when the payment is done, it shows up in their account rather than the attorney's. Our advice for this one is that whenever you're dealing with the client first time or you're making a payment for the first time to a supplier, just always give a call to the supplier just to confirm the actual banking details before you make the transfer. At least that way, that ensures that if the email was intercepted, we know where to kind of keep a track on it and know where it went wrong.
Okay.
And the last one of the scams that we talk about is the Reserve Bank scam. That one is one we've seen a bit more recently. And this is particularly in the real estate sector, whereby some of our real estate agents that we work with will actually get a document from a buyer who poses that they've got money that they have with the Reserve Bank that is stuck but is on its way, and they can use that document as security to secure the actual properties. The problem with this one is that it will often get caught out when it gets to the banks for the transferring process, but by then it's caused a lot of nuisance, and Lord knows what has actually been done with the property by the guys who were scamming it and having held and used it for a few months before the scam gets around for that situation. With this one, we recently had someone who had 10 billion, they claimed was in the Reserve Bank, was stuck, and they nearly had the estate agents give them and use that as security for a bunch of properties or farms that they had in use. And they would have been able to access the farms with that scam document for a couple of months before it then get unwound. So we were able to intercept that and stop that whole process. So that's the kind of scam that we now see these days. And our tip for this one is just that the Reserve Bank never actually touches individual and corporate funds. They always regulate people's funds through their own banks. So your money will get blocked, for example, at Standard Bank because the Reserve Bank has asked Standard Bank to block it. It never gets stuck at the Reserve Bank. So if ever you have a client or someone who tells you my money is stuck at the Reserve Bank, that is likely a scam.
Wow. I think that the fraudsters and scammers, they're out there, they always come up with new ways of getting things out of people, eh?
I agree. I always say that if they actually use their minds to actually help with societies generally, I can only imagine how good we'd actually be living.
Wow, creating jobs. Yeah, I think if they could focus on creating business and jobs, I think that that will be 10 times more productive for our society.
I think so. I think so. So yes, that's literally the scam presentation I had prepared for today. I hope your clients found it worthwhile. I believe you mentioned you had a couple of questions though that you wanted us to touch on.
All right. Yes. So yes, I have some questions that have from the clients. So I just want to just check on this one. Okay. The first one here. Okay. Comes up here. Okay. So I think you talked about it, but let's just go through this. This question says that can an individual with foreign passport open a Forex account?
Yes, an individual with a foreign passport can open a Forex account. This would be considered a non-resident account. So the only application to you would be you have the proof of funds introduced for you to send out the money you want to send out. If you're bringing funds in, it's pretty straightforward. Then you just use your non-resident account. We'll bring the money in and keep it here, and we'll keep the record for you for future use.
Right. Okay. Then I want to go to this question now because that's linked to that one. So this question says that do you need an income tax number to open a Forex account?
So to open a Forex account, okay, this is a bit of a vague one. So the types of accounts that we use to transfer money, if you are an SA resident, then yes, you'll need an income tax number. If you don't have one, we can obtain one for you. It's part of the process, no additional cost. So it's not something you need to worry about particularly. But yes, if you're an SA resident, then you do need an income tax number to open a Forex account, or at least to facilitate the transaction and complete it.
And going back to the previous question, someone with a foreign passport, a foreign national in South Africa, then in that situation, do they need to apply for to get a South African income tax number in order to open
So in that situation, So in that situation, they wouldn't need a tax number for the foreign because they have a non-resident account. So a non-resident account doesn't obligate you to get an SA tax number for that situation. It's only for SA residents who have an SA ID who are obligated to also have a tax number that goes with their SA ID.
I see. And what about asking for another country's income tax number? Because I've seen with some institutions what they say, they will require at least one country's income tax number. So maybe say that the client is from China. Would you then ask for the client's income tax number in China in order to open a
So
forex account?
at that point, often it would be a question of what currency they're looking to change for.
Mm,
Sometimes we do ask for Chinese one, but another one we often do ask for is the US one. So if we
mm,
have someone who's potentially from the US, then we have to ask for the US number as well to report it as well for that side, because the US can be quite
mm.
strict about those kind of processes. So
Right.
Europe as well
Okay.
has the same process. Whenever we do
Mm.
transactions either going to Europe, then we often need to have the European tax number as well for that
Yeah.
client to facilitate
Okay.
that transaction. Yeah,
I see. Okay. Now you're talking about US because US is they have their own rules. Okay, so they
correct.
have FATCA. So does that mean
Yes,
that if it's a US national in South Africa, they open a forex account, then you need to abide by the FATCA rules and then make
correct.
sure that you are able to submit any information to the US tax authorities.
Correct. Correct. So there's just more
Okay.
reporting standards with requirements towards the countries we're sending money to that they'll be asking for. So we will just
I
be
see.
abiding by that by getting the tax
Yeah.
number. But again, there is no tax
Mm.
penalty that is often charged in those situations. It's just
Yeah.
a reporting standard we have to do.
I see. Okay. Then Kuda, next question is, can a company make a foreign investment?
So a company can make a foreign investment. They're very specific circumstances in which it can do so, but it can make a foreign investment. For example, it can maybe buy a property overseas to open up a
Okay.
separate branch for itself and that kind of like. So in those situations, that would be considered as a foreign investment. Um, Other than that, they really, I don't say yes because it is a tricky one.
Mm,
So more often than not,
mm,
I think the best basis for a company is to just rely on actually working on invoices to send money
mm,
out.
mm.
Beyond that,
Yeah.
if there is circumstances where they like to send money out for any other reason, they're welcome to
Yeah.
give us a call and we can run through the
Okay.
processes to at least look for a solution we could offer them to put that
All
there.
right. So
Yeah,
I want to give a scenario. Let's say if it's Naspers, Naspers, and
right,
they invest a lot of foreign companies. So maybe say Naspers, they want to buy a company in India, and then
correct,
they actually are going to take the fund out of South Africa for that purpose.
correct.
Uh, then is that something that Currencies Direct will then be able to assist?
Yes, so we can assist with that. So with the loan agreements and all those things to make sure they're all
Mm,
filed correctly, we can assist
yeah,
with that.
yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah, so we can.
generally, for company that want to just make like a these paper investment or passive investment like unit trust, then my understanding is generally not allowed.
Yeah, generally, it's not allowed. Generally, it's not allowed. That's why it's very unique circumstances because of how
Mm,
gray and a bit confounded and cloudy the rules can be. Quite
yeah.
often, is we don't say no to you because quite often, if
Mm,
you look deep enough, we can find a solution to offer you. But
yeah.
generally, like you've mentioned, invoices is the basic one. Trying to
Yeah.
invest in unit trust is not often the one that we can get right. But trying to
Mm.
invest maybe in a property for a separate branch or into purchasing another company overseas, those are things we can assist with that can be done.
I see. Okay. So you're talking about buying property. So I just want to, because recently I seem to see a lot of like adverts about investing in Mauritius, buying property
Yes,
in Mauritius. So can a company buy a property in Mauritius and use that as a reason for transferring funds overseas?
that is possible. Yes, so it can be done
Okay.
for a person to buy a property overseas using a company. It can be done. Yes.
Okay. All right. Then I think this one we have covered, but let's look at this. Okay. How does your forex rates and the fees compare to banks?
Also, fees, no fees compared to the banks.
Yeah.
Compared to the banks, again, forex rates are often, just about 9 times out of 10, will often beat the banks. Um,
Mm,
the rare case is just that you have some situations whereby you have high net worth individuals who have
mm,
special agreements with the banks already
yeah.
for special rates. In those
Mm,
circumstances, at best, they will match their rates that the bank can offer. You may not always be able to beat them because the bank can often be
yeah.
giving them literally at no
Mm,
profit for the bank itself, just to keep that client on.
mm.
But for 90% of the people who are out there, we will beat the bank. Yes, our forex rates will beat the banks.
Right. I think the message here is that many clients they are quite comfortable with their banks, like especially the big 4 or 5 banks. like Standard Bank, FNB, Investec, etc. But the message here is there's no harm in shopping around. You know,
No, there's.
if Currencies Direct, that our partner can save you money, especially with a bigger amount, then why not shop around and save some money, and so that yeah, it's more to yourself. Okay. Next one is okay. So Kuda, this question, I think that we did talked about it, but I wonder whether you have any points to add. So this kind of question is, can you help me bring money into South Africa?
The answer is yes. Simply, we can bring money into South Africa. We have branches all over the world, so that often means that
Mm.
if, for example, in Europe, instead of having to make the transfer from your bank to South Africa, you can actually just transfer to our European account that we open for you, and then we'll send the
Yeah.
money from there to South Africa. That saves you not only in the transfer fees, but also in just the headaches. Because, for example, like in the US, some individuals have to walk into the bank to initiate a transfer. But if we have a branch in the US, which we do have, you then just send the money as a normal transaction within the US territories, and then we'll transfer the funds to the site for you. So you can help that. I think so. So another thing that I think we sometimes don't mention for Currencies Direct is that while we do save you money on forex rates, our main thing though is that we offer better service. The banks can often match the rates we offer as well if they're really hunting for a client, but 9 times out of 10 they won't beat our service. And what I mean by that is whenever you have an issue with the bank is when you see the service qualities being a bit, all over the place. Quite often we have people who maybe ask for rate from the bank, and you will hear that they will bounce to the forex department. The forex department mentioned, speak to this person, he'll help you. That's not our setup. Even when they have issues with transfers, people will have to submit an email sometimes, and you'll get a turnaround time of like 3 days from the bank. Sometimes we don't do that. For us, you can either give us a call directly or answer your query right there. And as you know, Kevin, if you have a direct issue, you can always call me as well. I'm more than happy to give you an answer. And I usually strive to get back with people with answers on the same day. So our service is our main point. If you're not only going to win on the forex rates, but on the service part. So if you want things done, make sure that they're done correctly. We also cater to you and service you appropriately. Then that's where you want to maybe come to Currencies Direct.
Yeah, Kuda, I think you what you say about differentiation. I think apart from cost, certainly service and the personal touch is very important, because that I recall a client a few months ago where we assisting the client in investing offshore. That through she wanted to do in 2 tranches. So part of the money was we then help her open a forex account with Currencies Direct, and then in a day or 2, then we got the money out into the right destination, no problem. Whereas the other part of the money is being sitting in her, I'm not going to mention the bank, okay? The bank that in terms of global forex account, she's got some already converted sitting in that bank's global forex account, and waiting for her to transfer. And she was trying to do that using the bank app, and she's been struggling. I've given her the kind of the settings, and like for the other party for her to transfer the money, but she's been struggling for almost like 2 months. Eventually, she just gave up on that part. So I think that's where working with a specialist, foreign exchange specialist like Currencies Direct, it's certainly that's a leg up. Instead of the banks, they all come up with now the apps like Standard Bank. I heard that they're promoting the Shift app, and Discovery they promote. Or they also have the forex account and that, but they don't really have that kind of a model where you can speak to a real human being when you have a problem. Whereas they expect you to just do everything yourself and expect a problem free, but it's not the case, especially when it comes to forex. So I think that even though the banks they are offering all these solutions, it's nice for clients to park their money or convert their currency into a foreign currency, and maybe part of their overall wealth management or investment. But when it comes to having to transfer money out, I think I'd rather just work with a specialist like yourself, and where what can go wrong, and you can can make sure things just go smoothly instead of struggling for a long period of time.
No, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So Kuda, last thing, I think that can you just walk us through, at this point in time, maybe the listener, the listener or audience would like to find out about how to go about opening a Forex account with yourself. Can you just walk us through the procedure and the paperwork that's required?
Sure, would love to. Would you have that slide? There's another screen I shared with the
All right.
perfect. This one.
Okay.
So
Can you see it?
I can see it indeed. Thank you.
All
Got
right.
it.
Okay. So yeah.
Perfect. So this is basically our transfer process from start to end. It basically outlines how we kind of do the setup. And what happens is it begins with opening an account. To do so, we have an online registration link that you can use. Fill it in. Everything's in there. Any uploading documents that we need to get done will also get done on that platform. The typical FICA documents we require just to get the account started are often your ID or your passports, a selfie of you with your SAID or your passport, and lastly, your proof of residence documents, not older than 3 months. And that usually gives us a basic foundation for us to submit those FICA documents to our banking partners, and we can then open an account with them. Our banking partners in South Africa include Mercantile, Invest, and Investec Bank. And the reason for them is just to offer clients different options in terms of the currencies they can send out of the country, because they offer different pairs each individually. So we use the one that's best for the client. With that, a question people often ask is, why do I need to send a selfie as well with ID? The reason for that is because of fraud. We basically just need a selfie to show that it is yourself that has your ID that is sending it, because it's a digital process and you didn't come in physically to us to open the account. That's the only reason for that. If you like to smile in it, go for it, but ideally it's not for us to actually stalk things, just to make sure that there's no actual scam or individual, fraud that's happening in the situation. What will happen from there, once you've opened or submitted those documents, we'll begin with the account opening. That takes about a day or two. We like to say a day or two from when it's submitted, because sometimes there are other paperwork or needs we need to come back with. For example, we may sometimes need to get additional bank statements, and that would be for source of funds if you're sending to a high-risk country. For maybe Iraq, if you're sending to Iraq, that's one of the high-risk countries. We just need to make sure that everything's in line for compliance sake, to make sure that all the banking partners on this side are happy, and when the transfer goes through, we won't give any issues. The next step, once you've opened an account, in about a day or two with us, is the red tape. Quite often that will also get sorted in that first day or two, but usually that's whenever you now maybe need, if you're saying over $1 million, the SARS situation will come in. So we'll then reach out to you and we'll ask you for the documents we need to make sure to SARS for you, and then we'll get that sorted and get done for you. In that process, SARS takes about 21 working days. It can be quicker. We often try and push for them to respond to us quicker, but it takes about 21 working days. Once that is done, you're saying that your clearance has been obtained. Will manage the accounts and basically execute the transfers when the clients are ready to transfer. And basically, they'll give you a call to confirm the details that you submitted with us when you open the account, to make sure it's you who's authorizing the account. And we'll also just confirm the beneficiary details we're sending the money to. The reason for that is that whole email interception I mentioned. You don't want a situation whereby on your banking app, you accidentally press the wrong number and you send off R1 million to the wrong place. When that problem happens, the bank may not be too keen to try and get it sorted and resolved, and will often kind of like want to make it say it was your fault, that kind of situation. So to prevent that, to offer additional security to our clients, an individual will call to actually verify the account details with you on the phone. When everyone is happy, we negotiate and discuss the rate for you, offer you the best one we can, and we'll send the money off if you're happy to proceed with us. And that's it. And from there, the funds will often reflect again on the other side in about a day or two. So best case scenario, for individuals sending less than R1 million with an SID, you're looking for about 3 days from start to finish on average, that you can get the account registered and send the money off and receive it on the other side, assuming no additional paperwork is needed. That's a best case scenario for that situation. If you're looking for more, then it can be about sometimes at 21 working days for us to get all the clearance for you to then send the money off. And if it needs to go to the Reserve Bank, then it's about usually 6 weeks for us to get approval for that. And that's the process.
Okay, no, that's great. And I think that's in terms of investing offshore, having a forex account and understanding the forex transaction process is really critical, because that in order for me as a financial advisor to help clients to invest offshore, then certainly the starting point is after I advise the client, and then the first thing is certainly to open a forex account. Either the client through their bank, they transfer they convert to forex and transfer money overseas, or through a partner like Currencies Direct. So that's very important. So I just want to kind of wrap up in terms of from the offshore investment point of view. So
Sure.
early on when Kuda explained about legislation, I just want to bring that up. So that's just
Sure.
to help everyone in terms of understanding from the kind of an investment point of view. So from the if you are looking to invest offshore, then these are the regulations that will be quite important to understand. So typically working with clients where the investment amount is not greater than 1 million, and also they haven't used the single discretion allowance, and then we can use that 1 million rand to transfer money offshore and to invest that money. If the client has already used part of that single discretion allowance, or they expect to use that in the future until the end, before the end of this year, then I will work with the client to see what's the amount we can use to invest offshore using that 1 million rand single discretion allowance. However, if the client wants to invest more, and then certainly we can help the clients, and that's through that second tier, the FIA, in foreign investment allowance, the tax clearance from SARS. And we have helped a number of clients successfully with that. And typically the client will demonstrate that they already have the money in the bank account, or they have sold their investment in South Africa and they want to reinvest that overseas. Or maybe there's a client that sold their property and now they want to channel that money and to invest offshore. So that these are the typical scenarios we can help the client in terms of investing offshore in line with the regulations. Okay, so finally, Kuda, I just want to ask you about something that I've picked up recently. Is about South Africa being on the grey list of the financial, I think it's Action Task Force, in terms of
Yes.
regulating in terms of the financial intelligence and also combating crimes and etc. organized crimes. What's that kind of an impact on us South Africans as a country, and also about forex? From the Currencies Direct perspective, how serious is that? If I see there's an article I'm just opened up. I think that by the sometime in February 2023, if we don't comply, then there can be serious repercussions to our country in terms of those financial transactions.
Yep, that's correct. We as Currencies Direct, we're hoping that actually doesn't end up being the reality we have to face.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what happens in those situations is that different countries are ranked differently in terms of their risk status.
Yeah.
For now, the requirements we have from a point of FICA are more towards anti-money laundering, and the way that we do things in terms of acquiring source of funds and the likes are based on us being pretty well rated. We're not yet in the gray or in the bad positions for now. If we
Right.
were to end up becoming the gray, the problem or the concerns we then have is that the documental requirements for people to then send money out will become higher, as well as for people sending money in. There'll be a lot more
Yeah.
restrictions, and that would
Sure.
impact South Africa because it becomes more of a nuisance or a headache for you now to transfer money in and transfer money out, such that people would less likely want to invest in the country. So that's the main
Sure.
impact that probably pose. So we're hoping, for all intents and purposes, that it doesn't happen that way.
And
So the basic for that is just to make sure we stick to the requirements, report them appropriately so that we can show that we are reporting them according to anti-money laundering laws, that we've got source of funds done properly, everything's put in place appropriately to avoid that kind of downgrade for us.
Right. And what is the government, SOB and SOS doing to make sure we comply and we don't fall back?
So on that one, I would be guessing, but we haven't had any feedback or haven't seen any notice from SARS or Reserve Bank yet on how they're
Right.
planning to kind of deal with that situation.
Yeah.
We've only just seen the same reports people have with regards to the threat of us getting downgraded. So we're still looking into that. The moment I have an answer, I'll be more than happy to get it to you and you can share it with the audience we have here.
Okay. No, that's great. Kuda, thanks very much. I think that this is really impactful, informative, and insightful session about Forex. And you also touched on the on financial immigration and also these scams. I think it's really a lot of information to digest. But I hope that the audience and the people who may be afterwards watching the recording get value out of this session. And again, I just like to thank Kuda for your excellent participation and presentation, and also that to the audience out there, if you have any further questions about Forex, about transferring money out of South Africa or bring money into South Africa, anything that any problems or questions you might have, please feel welcome to via the various platforms to comment, post a question, and so that I myself or through myself, I'll reach out to Currencies Direct, reach Kuda, and to get back to you. But thanks very much for joining us. Until next time, have a wonderful weekend, and to all the fathers out there, happy Father's Day this Sunday. And stay safe and stay warm. Bye.
Kevin, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kuda.